First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Matt Brock, and pretty much my background is that I was born here in San Andreas, and I lived here till I was about 9, and I moved to the Bay Area, and then after college, my wife and I decided to settle up here and raise our families. And where I stand and why I'm here is because I think everybody that knows me knows that I just care about our town and the future of our town. And my goal is to make San Andreas a place where my kids want to come back, if they choose to, and raise a family. And that's why I'm here, because I care, and I know that that's why everyone here is present, is because they care about our town. And we all know that we've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of things change in the last couple of years. And I think that's why we're all here, is to see what we can do to connect with each other, connect with our elected officials, connect with the sheriff's office, and all the agencies that are involved in our county to keep this place a good place to live and make changes to keep it a safe place to raise kids, a safe place to take your kids to the park, and a safe place to walk down the street. And I appreciate everyone coming here, and this is a great turnout. So with that, tonight is not a night to complain and yell at our elected officials or our sheriff representatives that are here, okay? There will be an opportunity at the end to ask questions and make comments and statements. I would really appreciate it if we save those till the end so we can move through the night and everybody can get home on time. But we have to understand, we have to believe that all these folks here are for the right reasons. They're here to help keep our town safe and make our community grow in the right way. So I really don't want this to be a session where we are bashing anybody up here. Let's keep it positive. How are we going to connect with each other to make this a better place? How are we going to connect with our elected officials and our representatives to make our town better? That's what this is about. We all know we can join up on social media and complain, and that's a great place to do it, to be honest with you, okay? But let's keep this positive tonight and move in the right direction together. So I'm going to introduce our Supervisor, District 1, Gary Tofanelli. We are also represented in San Andreas by Jack Graham-Mindy, but he's out of town. But Gary's here, and he's going to help us get through this meeting and introduce the right folks. And with that, thank you, Gary, for being here. We really appreciate it, too.
Thank you, Matt. And I want to thank everybody for coming. This is a great turnout, absolutely great. And all the concerned citizens, this is great. I couldn't expect anything more. I apologize for Jack not being here. He's in CSAC conference right now. But that being said, I can answer any of the questions that you may have concerning San Andreas. Even since I represented until recently what he represents here in San Andreas, I'm very familiar exactly what's going on in the area. Yeah, which brings me to, I wanted to speak first a little bit about some of the positive things that are going on and happening here in San Andreas. And first off, St. Charles Street, or Highway 49, it's been in a situation, as everybody knows that's lived here. Caltrans has paved coming from Angels Camp all the way up to Toyonda and stopped. They put all the way up to Pool Station Road and stopped. They paved all the way up 49 to Moke Hill, and they came down here and they stopped. They just seem to not recognize that this highway needs some help and some repairs here on St. Charles Street. Well, starting next year, they have a shop project, and it will be completely resurfaced. So it will be redone, and on top of that, we are working with PG&E for what they call a Rule 20A that's been in effect for any improvements on this highway through here. And what that does, that Rule 20A means that all the overhead wires that you see going through the town and the poles and everything will be put underground when that project starts going forward. And the lighting district in San Andreas, the San Andreas Lighting District, there will be night light poles going up. and they will all look the same. So everything, when you go down the highway, you will have a uniform, everything underground, and the lights all look the same. So that is coming starting in next year. It's supposed to be about a 2-year project. So just bear with them, they will be getting it done. It's on the books, that will happen. The other thing that's happening with Caltrans is the bridge right outside town here, just to the west, that's going to be completely realigned. If you're familiar with it, there's a left-hand turn going through it, there's kind of a turn on the bridge, and people going out of town hit the brakes because it's a dangerous situation there. That's going to be realigned, and that should be coming in 2024. So those improvements are coming there. I've met with Matt, and I met with the Rotary Club here in San Andreas. And during our budget hearings in January, and then, not in January, in June, and then in September when we adopted our budget, each supervisor was given up to $10,000 to utilize the money on parks and recreation. And I met again with San Andreas Rotary, and I met with Matt, and I donated the entire $10,000 for Nilsson Park. So you will see improvements coming in Nilsson Park, and I want to thank the Rotary Club here in San Andreas, because if you've noticed Nilsson Park, the changes and things that have been done and the upkeep to that thing, it looks wonderful compared to what it was, but there's going to be a lot more improvements there with handrail, and a lot of the bushes that are down along that wall will be removed, and there'll be new tables put in. A lot of things are coming, and that is going to be happening either sometime this year or next year. Depends on when they get things together to start doing it, but I donated $10,000 for that. Also, I don't know how many people know, but I've been working with COG and Public Works over the course of the last few years to get a grant, which is called Safe Route to Schools, and for Pope Street, Lewis Street, California Street, Main Street, and some other areas around, improvements in the Main Street because of the high school and its homecoming days there on Main Street. We were awarded $9.8 million for that project. That money will be coming available soon, and the engineering will be done. That includes money for engineering and construction. Engineering, development, and construction. So that will be coming here in San Andreas also. So those are just some of the things that are going on here. I want to take a minute and just thank Matt Brock. This guy, I don't know how many, I know everybody probably knows who he is in the room. This guy does so much for San Andreas. I really think he needs to stand up and everybody needs to give him a hand. He will always care. And he's always sending me emails. Text messages. So I'm aware of everything that's going on. So we had this meeting. We had met, Matt and I and Kate had met with Greg and some other staff over Sierra Inn about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And out of that meeting, we decided we would have this town hall meeting, and we invite the players here that can help us craft a way to help the situation at that location and maybe other areas, not only Sierra Inn, but other areas that we're having problems with in San Andreas. With the help of the sheriff's office and myself and any of the other offices here. We have the owners here tonight representing Sierra Inn, but let's not try and focus completely on Sierra Inn. There's other areas that are going on, and Nilsson Park is one of them, and some other areas that we can look, that we can maybe come together on. We can do neighborhood watches. We can listen to Greg tell us some what programs that are available and we can all work together to improve it. Because we have these improvements coming. San Andreas is gonna be looking different, and it's gonna be looking better, and we need to maintain that. And we need to maintain the fact that you guys need to feel safe again in San Andreas. Not worried about parking your car on the street and getting it broken into. Not worried about going on vacation for a week or two to see your family and coming home and finding that somebody's broken into your house. I mean, those are huge, big city things. We're San Andreas here. So we need to form neighborhood watches and any other things that we can do to help each other to make sure that we have a safe place to live. So with that, I'm going to go down to Greg Stark, Lieutenant Greg Stark, and I'm going to pass the microphone over to him.
Thank you. So I'm going to go over a couple things that's going on in the sheriff's office right now, kind of the state of the sheriff's office, and then I'll touch on the statistics briefly. So about 2 months ago, we graduated 4 deputies from our field training program. They are now full-time deputies on the street. It gets better. Right now, we just graduated 5. 5 are on the training program right now. We have 8 in the police academy, and we're looking to put additional 5 more in the next police academy. We already have 2 spots slotted for that. 2 people already selected. So we are working very hard to recruit new deputies, a few laterals, deputies that were previously employed somewhere else to this town or to this county. Our hope is that we'll be able to do more proactive enforcement. We'll be able to do more building checks, more vehicle stops, more pedestrian contacts. And instead of responding to calls, we can go out and make our own calls, go out and start, I'm not supposed to say hunting drugs, but searching for drugs and finding drugs and taking drug offenders and holding them accountable. So with that, I'd like to touch on some of the statistics we have here. So if you go on one side of the page, that's all of Calaveras County since 2018. And if you go on the back page, that's just San Andreas. And when I reviewed this, I kind of overlooked specifically where it says suspicious persons and vehicles. If you note that column on the back in San Andreas is rather high. That includes calls that come to our office, and that includes deputies going out and finding them. So if they see somebody lurking around a closed business at night, they see a suspicious vehicle driving through town or a suspicious person walking through town at any time, day or night, they'll call it out, they'll find out who they are, they'll run them out, see if they have any warrants, see if they're on probation, and they'll take action as necessary. So while that looks relatively high, I look at that as an administrator and think our guys are out there and our gals are out there being very active. So they're out there when they're not handling calls for service, writing reports. They are out there looking for people who are doing up to no good. So that could be alarming to you. That's good for us. And then if you look at the very bottom right-hand side, right down there in the yellow, so those are the total incidents for San Andreas. And some of those it seems high, wow. Some of those are just routine, hey, my neighbor's dog's barking, all the way up to, felony crimes, things of that nature. So while that seems like a lot, it's really not. Those aren't 8,000 arrests, those are just 8,000 incidents that are created. And an incident could be, somebody calling and wanting to talk to a deputy about a civil complaint or a subpoena they got, or, any call that's generated to our office. And just to touch on what Matt talked about earlier, about complaining to us and about lodging your frustrations. While I respect that he wanted to keep this civil, that's what we're here for. If you guys have concerns and you're passionate about it, let us hear it. If you guys have ideas, maybe we haven't thought of it. There's things that you might know about that we don't know about. So if you guys want to let it out, let it out. That's what we're here for. The cops, that's what we're here for. And to keep touching on our statistics, so we employed what we call something called a hotspot policing strategy. We have a crime analyst in our office that does nothing but evaluate calls for service that come into the Calaveras Sheriff's Office. So they attach a number to every call. If it's a barking dog call, it's a very low number. If it's a felony crime, it's a very high number. And they boil that down into a couple areas. Who's doing the crime? what area they're doing the crime, what time of day, and what day it's happening. And we create that list, we call it a hotspot list, and we have one for each beat. There's 4 beats in the county, and we give those to the deputies. So the deputy will get a sheet, and it'll look, because a lot of the guys we get aren't from here, they don't know our customers, they don't know, the frequent flyers, if you will. So they can look at that sheet and go, let's see, this month Marvell's having this type of crime, probably done by this person. If I'm not taking calls for service, I go to that area. So we'll saturate that area and work smarter, not harder, with the resources we have. And we'll saturate that area, looking for those crimes, looking for that person. They may have a warrant, take them to jail, do what we can. And then we'll get another list the next month, and we just keep going around and deploying our resources the best way we know. And that's through analytics. So that's what I have for the transient. So transient statistics are very difficult to create because they don't typically stay in one spot. Some of ours in this community do. Our job has been made a little bit more difficult with the right to rest. Anybody familiar with the right to rest law that came out not too long ago? Basically, we used to be able to move them on, but now the legislature has passed a law saying they have a right to rest and they can sleep in public places, they can set up camps in public places, making it very difficult for us to push them on. A little bit later, we'll talk about trespassing enforcement. I don't want to get into that too quickly, but so we are aware there's a transient problem. We do keep a very close eye on them. We take action when we can, and a lot of times it's not just the sheriff's department's ability to take action. We work very closely with code enforcement, we work very closely with probation, we work very closely with environmental health, and while as a deputy, I can't say that that's a code violation, but I'll go to the code enforcement office, we'll get a code officer out there, and we'll take a team approach to making sure things get taken care of. These things take a very long time. Some of the things that are going on behind the scenes aren't overtly seen by everybody. So while somebody might call it in, there's XYZ going on. All right, deputy goes out, that's a code enforcement issue, it goes on their books, and you don't see us contacting them, making other arrangements. So I can see where people will get frustrated, like, he's still there, he's still doing it, but the process takes a very long time. So those are some of the crimes and statistics and transit problems or issues that we're dealing with, and we track them, and we do what we can to make sure that when they commit a crime, they're held accountable. And we'll go to Cory with Housing and County Services.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Cory Allen, GHHS, Human Health Services.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Tofanelli. Hi, everyone. Thanks for allowing us to come share some information with you today. Again, my name is Cory Allen. I'm with the Health and Human Services Agency right here in San Andreas. With me today, I do have our Behavioral Health Director, Wendy Alt, and we have Lee Kimball, your Housing Manager. So what we want to do is basically cover for you some basic information about the housing needs of our community. In 2018, at the direction of our County Board of Supervisors, Calaveras organized different activities to begin focusing on what our housing needs would be. We did a lot of listening, a lot of community consensus building, and we gleaned ideas collectively to come up with a group of shared values. Those shared values will help us to move towards consensus when looking at how to meet the needs of our housing needs for the community. So the Board of Supervisors approved in 2019 what we refer to as a housing element. So every county has a housing element, it must be board authorized, and then it is brought to the state for their approval. Some of those values set the focus on creating adequate housing opportunities, providing accessible housing information, pursuing resources, ensuring an equitable distribution, delivering housing assistance services, and inviting partners to a shared table. And everything that we do in supporting the housing needs of our community is data-driven. We have several data sets we pull from, but we wanted to give you just a snapshot of the unmet housing needs here in Calaveras County. So for disabled households with housing difficulties, nearly 50% of our residents struggle with housing issues. For elderly households with housing issues, nearly 42%. Large family households, almost 60%, and the largest is in the low-income household category, where over 70% have housing issues. The next data set that we look at is called the Regional Housing Needs Allocation. So of course, if we want to have people housed in our communities, we have to have a house to put them in. And so looking at the housing and community development data, we show that the housing needs for those with very low or extremely low incomes, we need to build another 24.5% of housing. This was data that was collected in order to put that housing element together. And again, it demonstrates that the economic impact really does make a difference in access to housing. We also have point-in-time data that counts homeless, and typically that would be your street homeless. The PIT count, as it's referred to, or point in time, we saw that in 2019, so pre-COVID, we had 121 households that were counted, and we were serving 5 sheltered households. 2022, so coming out of the pandemic, we saw 66 unsheltered households, and we served 18 households in a shelter environment. So what that means is that the homelessness numbers decreased, according to that PIT count, by 55%, and we served a 360% increase of individuals in some form of setting, like an interim housing option. The direction to develop Calaveras County's housing program came from authorization from our county board. And through the planning department, that's driven by our housing element, which I've referred to, and through Health and Human Services, through the strategic plan to end homelessness. So each of those plans are on a 5 or a 7-year cycle. The housing element runs from 2019 and will time out 2027. So we're actively working through that, and we have 7 goals. They include things like ensuring new residential construction, affordable housing, special needs housing, things like that, working with our existing housing inventory. So you can see, and again, that will expire in 2027. We then have 5 strategies to end homelessness, and that goes from 2019 to 2024. The 5 strategies are to coordinate homeless data, to collect and then plan around that data, to increase our housing inventory, enhance and expand housing support services, strengthen community collaborations, and pursue emerging opportunities. So the work that we do is very intentional, it's data-driven, and works with specifically identified needs as authorized by our Board of Supervisors. And when authorized, we're able then to pursue funding to meet those identified strategies. I'm going to have Lee walk you through some of the funding that does come to Calaveras County to support these strategies.
Good evening, everybody. So there are several entities that provide funding to address housing needs. And I want to make sure when I talk to you about this funding that we've been able to get over the last few years, that you understand that it's not solely homeless focused, but it's housing focused and looking at all the needs that people, every person in this room has housing needs, to look at what the county can do to help with acceleration of developing housing as well as providing services. So in that time, for the folks who are at the most fragile end of stability, we have funding through California's Department of Social Services that targets families with children, families in the reunification process, families or households who have disability. And if you don't already know this, it takes about 2 years to get a permanent disability Social Security award. And during that time, if you do go to work, then they won't deem you eligible. And if you don't go to work, you're homeless. So we were able to bring in a program to assist those families in process. We also have a program that helps us with elderly people who are an APS or an Adult Protective Services case. We have 2 programs that target our transitional age youth. These are mostly people who were raised in foster care and are trying to get their adult legs into housing. And then we have programs that help our workforce with down payment assistance, as well as homeowners who are either older or disabled to do home modifications. And then we have some funding that also assists with accelerating development, either through streamlining processes in the planning department or promoting accessory dwelling units or little tiny homes in the backyard. You know, you can have a second unit on there that we're working on. We have also increased the number of emergency housing vouchers. Before we started our program, we had 67 total in the community. These are for people who are older or disabled and are on fixed income to help assist with their housing costs. And we were awarded an additional 30, so that's almost up to 100 now. So it's been quite remarkable to do that. So that's the addition of funds. In total, that's $3 million, a little over $3 million towards these services.
Thank you. So some of the outcomes that we wanted to be able to share with you is in housing stabilization. So we have brought direct service programs in-house, rebuilt program delivery models. We've expanded the number of housing programs we provide from 2 to 12 programs, as you've just heard Lee kind of go through each of those. We've increased that annual budget from a $150,000 program to a $3.7 million funded program to meet the housing needs in Calaveras County. We increased service from under 20 households to over 60 households. We've changed the focus from emergency housing response to long-term stability. And we've created a unique one-on-one tenant education program. We've established a method for assessing housing stability successes. So rather than focusing on deficits or where we're struggling, we really look at how is this person doing well, and then how can we build on that in partnership with families. And then we've initiated a private-public partnership with local realtors who provide locator services for local rentals. So basic housing services data, in the year 2020, we served 76 households. 55 of those found stability in their housing through the little interim efforts up front. That's a 72% success rate when I also factor in those who transferred to other supportive programs and out of our interim housing plan. And in that, we had 7 who unsuccessfully exited, and that's out of 76. In 2021, we served 71 households. 53 of those were housed with stability. We had 14 continue on, 2 that transferred to other programs. Our stability success, 75%. And January to June in the current year, we are already at 71%. So we're really seeing that those upfront dedicated efforts are paying off in getting the stability that we're looking for. It's important that we also continue to talk about the importance of housing production. So I mentioned earlier when I talked about the regional housing needs allocation, in 3 of the 8 years, we've achieved 18.8% of our goal for the numbers of housing needed. To be on track, we should be at 37.5%. So we're falling a little behind in development. So you can imagine, as we're trying to house individuals, it's a critical need. One way that we're also trying to continue to push the needle forward on this is through a two-tiered housing resource partnership collaboration. The first is a services-focused partnership, and the other is through the development team. So anyone that's working in and around those arenas come together and work on a strategic plan that will prioritize meeting Calaveras' housing needs. With that, we would, at the end, encourage you to offer your input, and of course, Lee will be gathering any data as well that will help inform moving into the next several years. Thank you.
Thank you, Cory. Next, I'm going to introduce Doug Archer from Mark Twain Hospital. Doug.
Thank you, Gary. All right, good evening, everybody. So basically, I just wanted to share a little bit of data of what's going on at the hospital related to some of the topics we're talking about tonight. Probably the biggest is what's happening with mental health. And we've seen a pretty sharp increase in mental health volume in our emergency room. To be clear, we don't provide mental health services. What our role is in this process is basically to provide a safe place for the patient until they can be evaluated by mental health. And if they're deemed that they need placement, then they'd be transferred out to a facility. Generally, that's in the Valley or the Bay. So we were on an average, in 2021 calendar year, we're on an average about 14, 15 patients a month. We've already climbed up to about 21 to 22 patients a month. Interestingly enough, our length of stay for those patients has gone down a little bit, at least according to our numbers. Before, we'd see them staying for about 18 to 20 hours each. You can imagine, ERs are not the most fun place to hang out. So 18 to 20 hours there is pretty rough. Currently, we're at about a 14-hour stay. The one marked increase of total patients is the pediatric population. We've seen a pretty good increase there, whereas before we might see 4 or 5 a month. We've seen as high as 11 in a month. So, and obviously, when we don't provide mental health services, our role keeping those patients safe until they find placement or disposition of some sort, but definitely can have an impact on our ER for the other patients that we do take care of, the medical patients. Gotten to know a lot of our friends in the Sheriff's Department through some of these activities, and I've personally witnessed one of these patients taking 6 officers, including one of our security guards, to keep calm, we'll say. The challenge that we really have with this as well is not all of these patients are violent or combative, but many of them are. We've lost a lot of equipment. We've had even as far as breaking the sink off the wall, breaking monitors. It's pretty disruptive, of course. Also a sign of the times, I guess. Also on kind of the, especially recently, we've seen a lot of news on the rainbow fentanyl and a lot of the increase in, I guess, drug activity, and unfortunately these people are getting smarter and more creative with how they produce these things and distribute them. Obviously, we see a lot of patients that come in with drug addiction. We don't see that many that show up directly because of the drugs. I think it's always related. But in terms of actual overdose activity, we're really more like 2, maybe 3 patients a month. We've already seen 3 this month. So you know how statistics are. 95 of them are made up on the spot. Of course, in the ED, we see a lot more patients that come in for other reasons, but also have drugs on board. And I mean, honestly, that's probably 1 to 2 a day at least. Again, not why they're necessarily there, but does complicate the care we provide. So those are, in terms of the specifics of what we're talking about tonight, that's really all I had to offer in terms of stats. But I do want to add that, overall, I hate bringing up the P word, or the C word, pandemic and COVID. But I think we're coming out of it. And, I'm happy to say our staff have done pretty well and survived. And, I think, for a while there, the hospital seemed like a scary place to be. We had our big yellow, decon tent out front, for how longer than I care. But I think we're coming out of it. I really do. Feeling positive about kind of turning the corner and moving on to all the other problems that face us in this crazy world. But I do want to let you know, I've been there pretty much every day through the pandemic. It's a pretty safe place to be. We still know how to take care of people, and we have a great housekeeping team to keep the place clean. So don't be afraid to come visit us. It's really all I had to offer. I'm sure there'll be some questions in the later portion. Supervisor, who would you like me to hand this off to?
Thank you, Doug. I wanted to point out the lady in the back with the child. How old is your child? 6 weeks. So how many people can say at 6 weeks old, they went to their first town hall meeting? That's something he can say the rest of his life. That's great. All right, well, we're going to go into probation that's on our agenda, and I'm going to introduce Kim to you, and she's going to speak a little bit about monitor and housing of probation in San Andreas.
Hi, I'm Kim Craddock, I'm the Assistant Chief Probation Officer. First off, probation doesn't house people. That's not our role. We refer to agencies that do house people when we have probationers that are homeless and household. Whether it goes to health and human services, yes, we do refer them to the sheriff's department quite often. ADCA, if they're a veteran, then you are able to sometimes get housing through veteran services. So we refer to those agencies that do the housing services. We monitor people on probation. Often they're coming to see us. We do home visits about once a month. We're in various people's homes that are on probation. Those people come to see us once a month. We make sure that they're going to their either substance abuse, mental health, parenting, whatever program the court has ordered them into. We follow and make sure they go there. We will provide them transportation back and forth to court if they need that. Sometimes we will provide transportation to their counseling services and that kind of thing to support their recovery and moving forward in their life. So right now, the legislature has changed how probation kind of runs. If you are convicted of a misdemeanor, instead of being on probation for 3 years, they have cut them back to 1 year, which is difficult to treat anybody within a year. And most felons are now on probation for only 2 years as opposed to 3 to 5 years. So we have a very short window to now supervise people on probation, and we try to get them into services as quickly as we can and to provide as many services up front as we can to get them moving through and successfully through probation.
Thank you, Kim. And now we're going to move on to the community solutions and strategies, and Lieutenant Stark is going to start us off.
Okay, so Ms. Craddock touched on something about changing laws. So some of the strategies we used to use as law enforcement, if you had any type of methamphetamine, heroin, or cocaine on your person, you went to jail. It was a felony. If I could find that little dime baggie and enough to say that it was a usable quantity, you went to jail. A few years back, they reduced heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine to misdemeanors. So now if I know who you are and I have no reason to take, yeah, wow, right? No reason to take you to jail, I write you a ticket. So I would previously on a Friday night find somebody, they'd go sit in there Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, maybe go see the judge Monday, Tuesday, maybe stay in, maybe not. Now, on top of that, we also have no bail. So the legislature put in, if you can't afford bail, there's a rubric where people get let out with no bail. So now it's harder for us to take them to jail for drug charges, And if and when we do, if we find a usable quantity a quantity that's enough that's for sales, we can take them, or we take them for something else, they let them out. Very frustrating on our part. So we keep arresting them, we keep writing them tickets, very slow process. Drugs, I'm not saying they're not illegal, but they are significantly lower than where they used to be. So what do? So when people are addicted to drugs, they typically steal or they'll do violent crimes, batteries on each other or other people. So what do we have to do? We have to harden our homes. We have to be smart about where we go. We can no longer leave our keys in the car. I still find that today is, oh, I leave my keys in the car. Please, lock your car. Lock your car, lock your houses, and just take universal precautions at your home. Motion lights, alarm systems, things of that nature, and neighborhood watch. Neighborhood watch is very effective to let people who are out there doing criminals, know that you're watching. They don't want to be caught. They don't want to go to jail. We give them three options. We used to say, stop doing crime, go to jail, or go somewhere else. But if they know they're being watched, they'll move on to somewhere else. If the motion light comes on when they come to your car, they'll probably go somewhere else. If you have cameras, security cameras, they'll probably move on somewhere else. If you have an alarm system on your house, they're probably going to go somewhere else. So things to do to take universal precautions to keep yourself safe. Be aware of your surroundings. If you see something suspicious, call it in. So right now we have about 4 deputies on duty for the whole county. If somebody takes somebody to jail, they're out for an hour and a half or so, at least taking them to jail, getting them booked, and that's not counting how long it takes to write the report. So if there's something happening in your neighborhood, and there's 3 deputies on, one for this side of the county, and one for that side of the county, and one going back and forth helping out, call the office. Let us know what's going on. Hey, this is brewing, this is happening. If we're chasing people and going, 100 miles an hour, we'll get to it. But at least it'll let that deputy know who's in Valley Springs. Hey, there's a disturbance, there's a suspicious person. Don't wait for him to break into a car. Don't wait for him or her to do something. Now I'm going to call the cops because we could be 20 minutes away. If you call and let us know, we can start moving that direction and pre-position ourselves or even make contact if we get there or even drive by. Sometimes simply us driving by, they don't want us talking to them, so they'll turn their music down, they'll stop acting in the manner they're acting that made you concerned. So give us a call, that's what we're here for. Our motto is community first, and we try to earn that every day, that respect that you guys have for us and we have for you. So a lot of times on Monday morning we'll come in and people will call and say, oh, my neighbor was this last week, or I saw on Friday night, I know you guys are busy, or I saw this guy walking around on Saturday, but I know you guys are busy. Call us. That's what we're here for. Don't wait. Like I said, we'll prioritize it and we'll get there when we can. So neighborhood watch. If you're interested in getting a neighborhood watch program in your area, give me a call. If you have a pen, I'll give you my phone number. It's 754-6783. I can come to your house and we can set up a neighborhood watch, establish some block captains, and get that one-on-one communication. We have a resident deputy in this area, and we have a resident sergeant in this area also that will help facilitate the flow of information from you guys to us and from us to you. And it's very useful to have neighborhood watch signs and block captains and people watching out for each other. So if you want a neighborhood watch, let me know. We'll get a geographical area put together, usually 10 to 15 houses. We'll get some block captains, we'll get some signs, and we'll get those established. Our volunteer unit. So our volunteer unit is very active. They do a lot of things to free up the deputies. They'll serve non-priority, or they'll serve subpoenas. They'll do vacation house checks. So if you go on vacation and you say, hey, you can fill out a vacation house check, say I'm going to be gone from this date to this date. These are the cars that are allowed in the driveway. This is the person watering my lawn, so don't come screaming in on them. If they drive by and they see a suspicious car there, they'll call us. And again, it's that presence, just driving around the neighborhood when you're not there, kind of flying our colors that we're around and we're watching, and people move on. So that's another service they provide. If you're interested in becoming a volunteer, we have about 67 openings. No experience necessary. No experience necessary. We have persons from all walks of life. We have mechanics to doctors, retired doctors, physicians on our volunteer team. We'd love to have you. They're a great group of individuals that go out and, again, do stuff in the office. They man our substations to free up our deputies. So, just to reiterate, if you take anything from this meeting, if you see something suspicious, give us a call. We want to know where it's at. That'll help with our hotspot policing rubric. It'll help with us determining where we put our deputies. Give us a call and we'll come out and check it out. And if you have any questions whatsoever about why something happened or why something didn't happen, or I called it in and the deputy just talked to the person and, moved them on. If you have that frustration, give us a call our supervisors, call me, and we can explain the legalities to what they did and what they didn't. Okay, thank you. And then also, the trespassing enforcement letter. So if you own property, specifically non-improved property, you can fill out what we call a 602 or a trespassing letter that gives us authority to either remove or cite persons on that property. So if you have a piece of property, like Matt and I worked on one not too long ago, there's down by the creek in town here. We found out who owned the property and they filled out a 602 letter, a trespassing letter. That allows us to remove somebody from the property without contacting you. So if you're in the middle of the night and you have a property somewhere in town and somebody's camping on it, it allows us and gives us the authority to remove them. Once we remove them, they come back and we can cite them because they were told not to be there. So it's another tool that we can use. We put it on file. It needs to be updated every year. So if you have property, or if you want to do it to your house, you have several acres, and if you don't find somebody camping on there, we find somebody camping on there, and we have the authority to kick them out, they're gone. And if they come back, they get a ticket, and then it escalates eventually, theoretically, to an arrest, and they go to jail for a little while, and then we start the process all over.
Thank you, Greg. Did everybody get his phone number?
Yeah.
I checked my phone, it's the right. It's not Rick's, so. I'm going to introduce the owners of Sierra Inn right now, and you're Treg? Patel, Nicole. Nakul. Nakul, there you go. Both Patels, correct? Yes. Close enough? Okay. Want to stand up? Do you want to talk a little bit? I'll give you an opportunity to talk.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you for having us here. I wanted to say special thanks to Matt, special thanks to Supervisor, and then Kate for organizing and inviting us. Many more people to thank, but we'll get to that. First of all, I wanted to introduce ourselves. My name is Nakul. This is Chirag. We're the new owners of Sierra Inn. Can we make this a little bit fun? I just wanted to, ask everybody, what comes to mind when you think of hotel or motel? Like, just raise your hand. Not Sierra Inn, what comes to mind when you think of hotel or motel? Just raise your hand, just throw it out there. Nope, not Sierra Inn, just randomly what comes to mind when you think of hotel or motel? Vacation, there we go. Anybody else? Short stay, okay. Well, I had a few written down. I said vacation, I said relaxation, I said family, I said fun, I said happiness. And honestly, that's what we're here for. I'll tell you one thing. We've been owners of Sierra Inn for about 2 weeks. We acquired this property November 1st. Could not be more excited. I know there's some, chatter in the audience, but could not be more excited. There is a reason why we took this property over. When I first came here, when we both first came here, we went to the building department, and there was a lady, and I was filing in, doing my license application and all of that, and she's like, "Oh, you guys are taking over Sierra Inn," and she, I could hear it in her voice, and she's like, "Look, I hope you know what you're getting into, and I hope that you guys can turn this place around because we want our community back and we want our families to have fun." And to Matt's point, when he first started this conversation, right? He said, I want to echo what you said. You said this town is for families. This town is for kids. This town is for safety. Lieutenant Stark said the same thing, right? And we're here because of that reason, because we're taking this as a challenge. We're taking this as, this is actually one of the things that Chirag and I talked about is, this is where we want to be. We want to be at a place that we can turn around. It's a little bit of a challenge, but I think with the community's help, with everybody's help, we can turn this around. And we could have gone somewhere else. We could have gone to another place. We could have acquired something else. But this is where our heart was, and the fact that I see all these people in the audience right now, I mean, my heart is warm. So it's gonna be for the better. We're gonna make this happen. We're gonna make this happen for the community, and it's gonna be an amazing place. We want people that are going to Bear Valley and Yosemite and Tahoe to stay here, to have a happy place to be at. And this is our motel, right? This is our hometown. So I promise you that this is gonna be the place where you can trust to be. So at least I wanted to share that. One last thing, obviously it's been 2 weeks, so we're learning a lot. We're going around, we're talking to so many close to local business owners, we're talking to the police department, we're talking to the building department. We're learning, right? We're learning a lot, but just, this is supposed to be about security and surveillance. So at least I wanted to give Chirag an opportunity to share in the last 2 weeks what we've done, and at least what we plan to do moving forward. But what we've done in the last 2 weeks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us here. In the last 2 weeks, what we have done is we have added about 18 security cameras on property. I have actually put my own family in the motel. They are staying there. In the motel's history, I believe in about 12 or 13 years, no one has ever stayed there as a manager. So that's one thing that has changed. Right now, Nakul and I both have 24/7 access to the cameras, and we are monitoring that all the time. So Nakul has a business, and so do I. We have 24 hours 7T that is going to also be monitoring those cameras. It is very important to us that we actually start monitoring. I have asked the manager on site that anyone who does not belong there must leave as soon as possible. I believe that was one of the issues that people just kind of stood around. So now we are actually asking people to leave that does not stay with us. Now we are adding motion sensors light in the back of the motel that is a little bit dark. And from what I understood, the old management never came to some of these meetings. So we actually want to start listening to you guys. It's going to be a community effort, but we are here and we are going to be here for a long time. So please share your ideas. We are here to hear and understand what we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 weeks. Well, thank you for coming and showing up tonight, and yes, and be able to answer some of the questions we may have out there. We're going to open up for comments and questions right now. And what we're going to do is, I think, if Matt, if you can check the people, who have the hands up, have a question, you go through, and then we can answer the questions here.
I got a couple right off the bat, too.
You got a couple right off the bat, Matt does. So hopefully you have them all written down, and we can get out of here before 2 a.m. in the morning. It would be great. Okay.
So real quick, so for us to live here, that grew up here, and to hear you can't leave your keys in your car is heartbreaking, right? And we hate that concept. We know that's the world we live in right now, but we want a place where you can leave your keys in your car. Not to say you would nowadays, but where that's a possibility, where you're not going to get your car ripped off. And let's be honest, in the last couple of weeks, there's been 7 car break-ins on Market Street alone, okay? And I really appreciate what everybody here had to say, but we have a crime uptick in our town, and we have a crime uptick in our county. And I just want to know, politically correct or not, there's going to be some things said that are probably not politically correct here, but we got to get to the bottom of this so we can move on. It's tough to hear all this and then realize that I don't know if you guys are in touch with what's going on in our town. I feel like you want to be, but if you don't live here, it's hard to see what's going on. So what you guys said means a lot, okay? And to know you guys are staying there and you want to be part of our town, to me, makes me so happy and grateful. And I'm really looking forward to making you guys neighbors and friends, okay? If you have kids around here, I need them on the football team, but that's beside the point. All right, so housing. Are any background checks being performed on folks who receive housing assistance?
We do pull a background check when they get housing assistance, because that is one of the barriers that we have to be aware of before we can assist them in finding permanent housing. We have to know what a landlord would be looking at. So we do have some background checks done.
Okay. Is there any way that we could work together with probation and the sheriff's office and housing to work with our pretty awesome transit system we have in the county? I know you can't force people to leave a town, but offer them a place, a ride, or a method to get back to where their families are so they can receive proper support.
Hi, Wendy with Behavioral Health, and I'll start this off. Oftentimes, we are called by the Sheriff's Department or by the community, and while it's not really in our area of work, we know that that's important to the community, and so we reach out to those people that are in what we would call a crisis and try to determine where they are from, where their family is, where the closest relative is, and get that individual back there. I mean, we've gone states away. So that is our first goal, because in order for somebody to be in recovery, they need a support system. And if they're in a place where they don't have that, it's not going to help anything. And so I do want you to know that is our main goal at Behavioral Health as well.
So for probation, when we have people come out of the jail or out of the prisons, we do, if they're homeless, we do try to find family members who will take them in. And if they need transportation, we have provided that. You know, if it's a great distance, then we'll work something out, but we'll get them to family if that's what they need. They can't, once they're on probation or parole, they can't just leave the state without, so if they live out of state, the state that they would want to move to has to say they can live there. So it's very complicated, and it can take, I think the federal government's gives them 45 days to say whether or not somebody can move to another state. So if they're in the state of California, it's much easier for us to say, well, you can go live with this family and we'll get you there, and transfer their case to whatever county they've gone to. If it's another state, it's very complicated. It does happen, but it's a process.
If we encounter somebody and we say, where are you guys from? And they say, I'm from Murphy's or Vallecito or Sonora. Can we give them a phone number to call to get a ride somehow?
I'll give them a ride.
So really, we can only provide those services to people on probation. And for people on probation, we'll provide bus tickets or those kinds of stuff if they're within the county. But, you know, a lot of people, even then, the bus service isn't sufficient enough to get them home. So if they're up in West Point, if they're up in Dorrington, they really rely on us for those rides. But we can't just take someone who's not on supervised by us and take them wherever. And I don't think any agencies can actually do that.
But if they are on probation, we can say, there's probation.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, if they are on probation, then we will work with them to get them to their family.
All right, here's one other thing that we talk about a lot. And I get it because I answer 911 calls too, okay? And after sometimes you get frustrated going to the certain calls and it's part of the job and you always, in my opinion, have to keep a smile on your face, right? You're there to serve and you swore to serve. Sometimes when we call dispatch, it feels as if they're annoyed or bothered with our phone calls. And that deters people from calling. And I think it would be really helpful if the calls were more well received. I think people would call more, and it's frustrating when you feel like you're bothering them, you know, and that's just input I've received a lot from folks. But Lieutenant Stark, should anyone ever hesitate from calling 911, even if they see a suspicious car or somebody who looks like they're up to no good, anytime they feel like something's wrong, should they ever hesitate to call 911?
So first off, never ever hesitate to call 911. If you're not sure, should it be the business line or 911, call 911. And not just dispatchers, but if you have any service that you find that wasn't 100% to your liking, I want you guys to call in. We don't know, one second. We don't know when people are being rude. We do spot checks on our phone calls that come into 911, but there's so many, we can't listen as supervisors to all of them. So if you guys have something that doesn't sit right, you weren't treated well, we're in the customer service business, and if we're not giving good customer service, we want to know about it, and we need to take action on it. So please call in, ask to talk to a supervisor, and we'll go from there.
She knows she knows who we are, and she calls back to us when we call.
So I hear what you're saying, and we, so real quick, so I need you to hear me. We can talk after, we can hear.
Hold on, let's wait.
So listen.
Let's do this the right way.
So I've been here for 28 years. I haven't placated anybody yet, okay? If you want to talk after. Okay.
Hold on, sir.
Let me finish.
Let's wait.
I am hearing about this for the first time right now. After the meeting, we can talk. You have to talk to me, okay? All our tape lines, everything's taped. We can go back and review what was said by our dispatchers, and we can take action, okay? Okay. So if you want to talk after, if you would like to talk afterwards, we can talk afterwards, and we can try to rectify the situation. But I'm here to tell you that's not how we're supposed to do business, and that's not how, okay, that's not how we're supposed to do it. We're gonna get it right. We can talk afterwards, and we'll take care of this.
Looks like I touched on a touchy subject. That's why we're here. But let's please be respectful of everyone's time. Let's do this the right way, okay? So I have no more personal questions. That was a lot of them. I see some hands out here. We'll start with Tiffany.
For the safety of the children, I've noticed that there's been a huge uptick in accidents or people getting hit, may not be fatalities. But I was wondering, are we going to put any more crosswalks in, like by the hospital for these kids to go back and forth to and from school?
Yes, there'll be more. I walked about 6 weeks ago, 5 or 6 weeks ago. I walked with about 12 or 14 people through Pope Street, California Street, Main Street, Lewis Street, and around.
Right, I'm talking about St. Charles Street.
Yeah, St. Charles Street will have, when Caltrans finishes that they're resurfacing and redoing it, and by the way, they're going to completely take it all out, smooth it down, and resurface it. There will be more sidewalks and other situations to where the buses completely get off the highway and the road when they go to pull over to pick up people. So yes, there will be a lot more, and there will be flashing yellow signs, lights for, you can push the button when you want to cross the street. There's about, I think the plan, just don't quote me right off, but I believe the plan, and it's available through COG. Aaron could correct me, that we may still have it on our website for this. There's about four situations or places that they're gonna do that, push the button. But there'll be more crosswalks, yes, there will be. And I pushed for that, especially for the high school kids going across, so, yes, there will be. But there will be other crosswalks going towards, the elementary school on that project. There'll be speed tables going through there to slow down traffic there, and other places that we're looking to do that also, that people are using to make shortcuts to get around highway traffic and just speeding through there, so, yes.
You said they're going to resurface. I don't need it. I understand they're gonna do resurfacing on the highway or Main Street here. One of the most irritating things to me is anytime I try to enter a business, I end up tearing up the front end of my car or having to stop in traffic in order to avoid doing that. They've repeatedly resurfaced this highway without taking it down. And now, instead of a driveway interface, you have a hole you crawl into and then try to crawl out with your car. Are they gonna fix that?
That's exactly what they're gonna do, that's what I said, they're gonna completely take all the asphalt out, regrade it, the whole thing, to fix the exact situation that you're talking about. I brought it up many times, and yes, they agree to do that, that will be fixed, you won't have that situation. I'll get you, let me get the word first, everyone else.
Just a planning issue with the whole resurfacing and everything and PG&E doing their thing.
Can you hold on a second?
Yes.
I want to come on here, questions are here to our meeting, so I want to be able, like, to hear and we can talk, I'll bring your microphone out here, everybody can hear the question.
Just wondering if PG&E, any sewer planning or any other planning that might disrupt what Calaveras does to fix the highway through town can be done prior to or in conjunction with, so that they don't end up cutting up the new highway just to put in new line.
That's my point, I've made the document many times, and yes, we're trying to get PG&E to do all this work being done prior. And, we have a sanitary district, board member here tonight, but we will be in contact with all of those, CEPD and, CTW, and there's a sanitary district to make sure any improvements, that are done between full stations, need to be done between full station and Toyanza, is all done, and when they get it done, that road will not be torn up for a long time. We have a new highway there, we don't want to have somebody come back now. And I was so upset, I don't know how many people go down, Mountain Ranch Road by the hospital. We spent all this money resurfacing all of that, and I was just excited about it. I had several comments to Public Works about 6 months after we got it done, they cut a hole across there. And did the same thing. I was just upset about it. No, we're working towards that not being done. So just because that's not. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I'll take the microphone, Mr. Costa.
Okay.
Sorry for talking. So I've been on Hill Grant Street off code for 8 years. And from day one, we had methamphetamine out across the street. I called code compliant. I've done my due diligence. I called the sheriff. I called code compliance because there weren't enough sheriffs to handle the problem, and they referred me to code compliance, who referred me back to the sheriff, who referred me back to code compliance, and I filled out probably 20 forms in the last 8 years. Got my neighbors to sign forms. I've called code compliance back. Finally, after, I'd say 30 people were living in the house across the street from me, and they were smoking methamphetamine with the garage door open and children sitting on their laps and riding quads up and down our street. Finally, after they put a porta potty on the street because they didn't have any sewer, this was after about 5 years, code compliance shut them down because of the sewer and came in and finally did something. And I was calling the owner I was calling the owner's other daughter, they left, and then another guy wheeled in a trailer, catty corner from my house. We have about 8 houses on our street. So we got rid of these guys. I got rid of these people, by just complaining for years. Anyway, the trailer came in, new house. Several people were living in the trailer across the street from me, and there's an eviction moratorium because of COVID. And nobody can be kicked out of this trailer because that's what the state has mandated, that nobody can leave. And there's a gal with drug-induced schizophrenia for 2 years at that trailer across from my house, screaming every obscenity, the worst words, day and night, every hour, on an hour for years. When the kids are at home, on home study, we can't have the windows open. I can't open my door. We can't go outside because there's people screaming a horrible thing all the time for years. And the sheriff's department tells me there's nothing they can do. Sorry. Well, the state lifted the moratorium, and I went back to code compliance, and I went to the sheriff, and there's nothing they can do. They're not doing anything wrong. Okay, that's my sad story. What I want is for the county to have an ordinance about noise and enforce it, about camping and enforce it, about loitering and enforce it, about transiency. You can't do anything about drugs. Do something about somebody camping in the trailer for 3 years. Do something about people camping in the backyard. Do something about somebody selling methamphetamine on my street. And do something about people driving under the influence of methamphetamine up and down my street for years. Do something. There's something else we can do. Thank you for listening.
Yes, ma'am. We have another one.
I'm not sure who this question was before, but I live close to the jail, and I've had several experiences with newly released, overnighters. I've been probably picked up for drug or DUI charges, sitting in my driveway, that I've actually given rides to because I didn't want them to stay there. So are you guys able to transport newly released individuals to their home? I've dropped them off at bus stations, I've taken them to motel, just because I don't want them loitering in my driveway. And they have their bag of jail goods, and they have nowhere to go. And people in our neighborhood that they've had on the property as well. And I don't know if that's the same as the probation rights, that they have to be on probation, or if they're just released from jail and sent out into the community, because that's been a problem for us that I've just dealt with, but, I have 7 children and I don't really want them on my property, so.
That's great. Good job.
So just to touch on that, so the sheriff's department doesn't give rights one way, take them to jail. We don't take them once they're out of jail. I would say though, that if somebody's sitting on your property and they recently got out of jail, I would use some severe caution with that, call us and we can move them on.
Well, I don't want them staying there,
Well-
they're just hanging out. So what am I supposed to do, just let them sit there?
No, do not let them sit there, give us a call and we can tell them to move on. But, sometimes when people go to jail, they may not be the person you want in your car, taking them on rides places.
I realize that,
Yeah.
but I don't know how.
That's, I mean, just word of caution, word of caution.
It is a good word of caution. Be careful, no. That's what you're just getting done, you have to bring for a reason. Yes, sir.
I got a question for the owners of the CRN, the new owners. You guys seem really cool, thanks, and hope everything's gonna work out. But I have a question. You bought kind of a bucket of problems, let's say, that was handed to you. What's your game plan to clean it up? Bottom line.
The town itself is historically, for the lack of better words, living on a longer term phase. What we intend to do is make that hotel a little bit more of a vacation. We have started improving. We are probably 2 to 3 years down the road, you will see that what we want. But it is, Nicole and I talk about this a lot, and it's not a very big implementation. But we are slowly starting.
It's definitely gonna take time, but don't you think you could put something in there, like if you get 2 calls on you, you're out? I mean, seriously, the cops are there constantly.
Yeah,
And I'm
so,
sure they don't like to be
yeah,
any more than anybody else, and there's a lot of trouble that comes from there.
yeah, that's,
I mean, it seems to me like you could put something in writing that, you know.
so in last 2 weeks, we have not yet seen the police presence. But Nicole and I are not here to say that to make 60 bucks or 100 bucks more within the next 6 days. We are in here for long term. So why having that application because I'm telling you first. So we are not going to be solving. The previous group of owners that were there had number of problems. So for them, it was just making good driving. We are not. We are not.
I just wanted to echo something that he just said. You know, I think one of the biggest things that's missing or was missing at CRA was management, right? Like there was nobody at the front desk. There was a little sign that says call this number if you want to get checked in. And so imagine the kind of activity that would happen, people get comfortable, right? Now, to TR's point, there's a family. We have people there, and when you go, there's gonna be a human to check you in, right? Like there's just literally by taking that one step, we've seen nothing in the last 2 weeks. Absolutely nothing. They sleep there, they wake up there, they're managing the entire property. We just installed 18 cameras, so we have so much more visibility. We have motion lights over there, so there's some lighting in the back and in the front of the property. And you know, like during the Christmas time, we're gonna do some more lighting and things like that. It's gonna be a good thing, right? And to his point, yes, it may take a few years to fully turn it around, but in the next few months, you're organically going to start seeing huge difference. We're already seeing it in 2 weeks, so I can promise you that's gonna happen.
Hi.
I understand that, people get paroled into that facility. And, there was a crime that happened with a parolee going down and holding a local person hostage. And, the person got killed, got put down. But what I'm saying is, I see a lot of traffic walking by where I live, people from that place, and, they just get to live there forever. I don't know if it's lucrative or what, I just know that. It's pretty bad.
I totally hear you, and I think that's one of the things that we're also working with, how we get those folks in there, right? And so we're working closely with the police department, the housing department, everybody, because we kind of want to also make sure that we get to choose and pick and choose the people that are coming in, And like I said, in the past, the ownership was a little different, they didn't care who comes in, right? They didn't have any kind of set of eyes looking at who's coming in, who's going out, but now we will. So I think just by doing those little things, you'll get to see it, you'll see it. Yes, sir.
My question's more to you on this, Gary, on this same question. June 21st and 22, you guys, the county board of supervisors approved to spend $600,000 a year at at Sierra Inn. Now, it says here, an agreement with, Health and Human Services to not exceed $600,000 a year at their end, which by my math, that's $50,000 a month. No wonder you guys just bought it. That's a good investment. That's a business investment. And what's gonna happen when we vote these guys out and they stop paying your mortgage?
I want to answer that. And I come over here to Cory and Lee, because I believe that $600,000 was not specifically for Sierra Inn, it was for the county and other hotels around.
No, that's not true.
For three years.
You had 600,000 just for this Sierra Inn, you have 200,000 for, the Angels Inn.
Can I speak to that? So the contracts were in regards to Project Monkey, which was a COVID response, but which is no more. So those contracts are no longer valid. But we had to make it good because we didn't know how much more the pandemic was going to be extended. So now that's done, and we don't have that contract anymore.
So those people gonna
Did
leave.
you understand what she said? That was hotel road key. And it was adding to an amount that was already there to go over a course of a number of years. The hotel room key is no longer a stock. So those contracts are no longer any good. Those rooms not be filled with hotel room key. And it was for other areas. It may show that that's area had to do with other areas of the county. Hotel room key was not specifically just for here. It had other areas involved in it. Those contracts are no good anymore. So they're no longer replacing people there under that program. So it's no longer, yes.
I'm a place on Pool Station Road. I'm a place on Pool Station Road, the investment there. We had, this last summer, we had a drug that showed up and was living in the Calaveras. And was breaking into the local businesses. And, I'm pretty frustrated. I heard a lot about how we're helping people with drug problems, alcohol problems and stuff. I've been on the other side of that. I've been in San Andreas part of my life and chasing somebody out of my building with baseball bat around the block, all kinds of stuff. It's war to me. I mean, these people come in like zombies on drugs and they gotta get their money for their drug and they bring in a crime syndicate that takes the goods that they steal and pulls them out of town to some other place. And it just goes down really quickly unless somebody stands up to it. And I was hoping to come down here and get a nice deputy badge and maybe a shotgun to get together with people who've had this. And that's not what we've been talking about tonight, how we're going to put a stop to this kind of stuff. And I feel, I'm a big guy and whatever, but, I've been threatened by a situation, and so I can only imagine what it's like. Some rest, you have more of it over here. But if it gets started and starts, I've seen it happen all over California, and I know the rest of you have too. And if it gets started and people don't put a stop to it, then it just gets worse and worse. And I hear a lot about how, the sheriff's department's hands are tied and the laws and this and that. Well, it's time to give us deputy badges and let us take care of ourselves.
We're hiring.
This lady had a hand up.
My next report is that 3 children, Calaveras High School, Twain, and San Andreas. They all walk home from school. They've been threatened by people at the hotel from my network, and it doesn't feel very good when we have young kids calling me saying that somebody's going to come beat them out and drop them to school. They can't really go to the park. They can't even cross the street safely because we have no crosswalks that light up for kids. Nobody helps kids cross. My high schooler
She said even if you saw, whether it's traffic through town or homeless or always something, my kids hate walking home because they do not feel safe anymore. And I grew up walking through this town and not having to worry about anything like that. And I guess, what's the plan for children that don't even feel safe walking home because of everything that's going on in our town?
Thank you. And I think this is a question that probably has more than one answer to it. I can tell you as far as brought up, what's going to happen at St. Charles Street, what's happening safely in schools and Full Street, Lewis Street. I can bring up Greg again, who wants to address walking home and the hill from Sierra Inn and what we can do as a group together. I don't think it's an individual situation. The group, you came here tonight, the group, I think we need to stay as a group, to get these things fit as we go forward, right?
So, if your child threatened, call us, and we'll initiate an investigation. With our increased staffing, we've been able to put on, back our school resource officer, Connor Sewell. He's working in the area, specifically using San Andreas and Twain today. With more additional staffing, the more staffing we get, the more SROs we can put in. Sheriff, we're gonna do at least one more, whenever our staffing comes up, possibly a third. So, make a report, we'll do the investigation, we'll send it to the attorney's office, we'll get some type of resolution. But don't have your child walk home here, either knowing or not knowing who that person is. We'll do the investigation, we'll find out who it is, and we'll take action.
Back here, person.
The only thing I can add, we are doing this report, and we are see actions. And we get all of the we have motion.
Cool.
To the Patels, I just wanted to say thank you for investing in San Andreas and your belief in our town. But to clarify, I believe this goes to Ms. Allen. What Ola brought up about the Project Rookie, that may have expired, but doesn't the county have a contract with Sierra Inn? Because that is one of our largest concerns, I think, is that it's ongoing. So it was unclear to say that Project Rookie was, this whole thing is all going away. That may have, but I think that concern of those other contracts haven't.
And the entire path is level.
We only have one mic.
It's good exercise.
Gave my steps in, it's on my thing here.
No, thank you for re-clarifying the question. Project Room Key did end. That contract is no longer valid. It also has new owners, so it is invalidated. Does the county work with our interim housing needs of our community? Absolutely. And we will use whatever interim housing is available through several other programs. But yes, Project Room Key is over and there is no active contract.
They've been staying there for years. So why are they staying there? Are they getting money from the county to stay there? Are they getting vouchers to go there? Rooms aside.
Right on.
Okay, thank you. So the question now, does an individual have access to certain programs that provide them a voucher? Yes. So we will extend housing authority.
So I understand that helps fund their hotel. But at some point, it would be great if they had a hotel without support of that county contract. And I think that's where Gary as our supervisor needs to be aware that San Andreas does not want to have a beautiful hotel
be a place for the homeless. We can create other homeless or facilities for our homeless. And I know our community tried a few years ago, but I think maybe having seen what's happened with our towns, we need to revisit, you know, the apartments that we tried up on Foothill or whatever. So.
Yes, we do not have an active contract this year, and
Who pays for it?
They said you had vouchers, they could redeem through the county.
So the way this works is, just like how food stamps work, the money goes to the client and the client expense. The only reason we had a contract ever for housing was because of Project Ruby and the expanse what we thought we were gonna have to do. But that's gone, and so now we're going back to what it was before Project Ruby, which is how the money goes to the client to expend, they bring the receipts in. So they're contracting for you.
I just had a question for you, kind of start. Is there a possibility, because the traffic is back for the kids on St. Charles, is there a possibility that the sheriff volunteers could do a crosswalk thing for those kids? That we could figure out the times from the school district when it's needed. And I think that would be a really good solution.
So we are volunteers, so I can throw it out when they're available, we can do something like that. So we can't dedicate them every single day, but that's something we can certainly look into, for that helps us with that. That's a possibility. Absolutely, we can work for our crossing guard, if you will. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just to you had mentioned that the planning aspect of housing, and this kind of piggybacks on what you were just talking about. One of the main aspects was equitable distribution. That doesn't seem very equitable as far as how much San Andreas has received as far as our fair share of basically transits. And I understand that people need to have access to services, but to kind of go with what Matt is saying, equitable distribution, there's a great transit program here, and what opportunities and what is motivating other people to at HHS or the other departments to say like, hey, equitable distribution, let's move it along to other places in the county, not just in San Andreas.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
when we talk about equitable distribution, usually what that relates to is across the income spectrum, so that you don't have all upper income housing being built and no extremely low income housing being built. So equitable distribution has to do with across the income spectrum.
Okay, and I appreciate you telling us that, because really, the statistics are great to hear, but not really understanding what they mean. But I think we can also relate equitable distribution to the services and distributing the housing among the different areas of the county too.
Yes, and that's what I meant when I was saying, thank you for that input, because that is something that we're always looking at, is how do we distribute access to housing that is either workforce available or low income available, because you're right, we want to talk about how that is going to be distributed. So those are those that Lee is thinking.
And partnering with transit.
So-
To have a great transit system.
So if I'm hearing you right, you're talking about the geography, where we put, so I can speak to that. So we don't, when we permanently house, we get people out of the unit or into permanent, it isn't San Andreas. It's all over this county, and sometimes relocation fees to other places where
What
there's
about
support systems.
temporary?
Sorry?
What about temporary?
In temporary housing, it's not on San Andreas Island. So we have it spread out. I know this one's more visible, but there is, it's not necessarily, it has to be your transportation for people to get to services that we need here, or we just can't.
But yeah, luckily we do have a great transit system that picks
So
up.
there is a geography distribution, but when we did the equitable distribution, what we really wanted to bring focus to is the greatest housing need in Calaveras is not to address the homeless, but it's to address creating workforce housing. Our economy and our ability to support these families, and it's all going to be dependent on our aggressiveness for workforce housing. We want to be equitable in that.
I appreciate that.
Oh, no.
This kind of goes back to the St. Jude kids getting from school and having to cross St. Charles. So this kind of is more to you, Greg. I've lived back up here for almost 8 years, and I have been flipped off, cussed out, and passed on the right because I do 30 miles an hour through our town. People fly through here, and I have never, ever once seen a sheriff have somebody pulled over and give them speeding tickets. Is that something that you guys can start doing? Because it's dangerous. I've had almost near misses of people because they won't slow down and you can't get out on the side streets. And kids trying to cross the street, and nobody wants to stop.
So no matter where I go, from neighborhood watch, one of the number one complaints is driver. And I hear what you're
The
saying.
neighborhood's
So
just as bad.
I agree with you. The sheriff's department doesn't have any radar on cars. So if they find somebody who's speeding, we have to pace them for a certain distance across the Calaveras to we can. What we can do, we can let our CFP partners know, what's going on and where. And they also have a hotline you can call to log complaints for specific areas. And again, they'll deploy their officers to certain times, certain areas, on certain days.
We'll come sit up on Oak Street first thing in the morning, and then around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because I have people that come up this hill, fly around that corner, spitting gravel, almost ran into a house. And then by the time they hit my house, and I'm house number 2, they're doing at least 35 miles an hour.
This is what I'll do.
It's Oak Street. It is a drag street.
I will
And they're doing
direct our-
the same thing up and down the main
I'll
road.
direct our school resource officers to the front up in the morning. And we'll see what we can do for that. At
Me and
least
my
show-
neighbor stopped one kid.
At least show a presence. We may not be able to pace them enough to give them a ticket, but I'm sure there's something we can do.
And then just through town,
Absolutely.
get people to slow down in town.
Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. My name is San Andreas, and I am born and raised 5 years in San Andreas. So I have a couple questions. Elephant in the room. There's been this rumor in town that there is a program, a entity, there is something from somewhere that's dropping people off into San Andreas. Does anyone know if that's true? Okay, so we can stop that rumor right now. Okay, one of the things that I've noticed, being born and raised here for 45 years, is a lot of the transients are not from here. Where are they coming from and why do they choose San Andreas? It's not somewhere I would think I would want to go if I was in this state. Okay, is there some kind of program that the sheriff department put on for people that would like to volunteer and start a neighborhood watch? You can give us the tools, the training, so we can formulate something in our neighborhood. So we have skills, so, I'm gonna be honest, my biggest fear of the situation is that San Andreas is like postal. We're on high alert. And crap's gonna hit the fan and we're gonna protect our property and somebody's gonna get hurt. And it's gonna be a good Samaritan that's life has changed by defending our property or our people. That is my biggest damn fear. I'm absolutely deathly. So, I would love to volunteer with the sheriff. I would love to learn some skills. I know there's others. And maybe we can get some kind of program and branch off and develop this into a bigger scheme. Also, kind of off subject, Calaveras County does not have booking photos. It was a huge, huge thing when I was a security officer. We would always look at amateur booking log photos. That was such a huge tool we used at the casino. It would be a great asset if we could look and, you see so-and-so, and nobody knows who he is when he's walking down the street, and he's walking right past you. It would be really good to see who those people are, instead of having to take all that time Facebook stalking people. Let's see what else. Was there a statistic on the homeless people in our community? I know once you say you live here, that you live here. But I walk this town 3 times a day, and the homeless community that I know, mind you, I was a postal employee, so I know everybody, born, raised, fire department, I know everybody, good and bad. The people that are homeless in this town right now are not people that are from here. So can anybody comment on any of those things? Thank you.
So I'll go down the list from what I have, if I forget something, please let me know. So neighborhood watch, yes, we will absolutely, any neighborhood, set up any neighborhood watch meetings you like. In addition, we'll pledge if you guys want to do another town hall meeting for just personal safety, home security, general awareness. We can do a specific point to want to get the PowerPoint together. We can go from that. Neighborhoodwatch.com is a great how to get a neighborhood watch program started. If you want to go ahead and start that on your own without our involvement, you can go to that website that walks you through exactly how to do that. Booking photos. So the state of California, your legislature, has very specific rules when we can post booking photos and photos to our website, to our Facebook page. It has even more restrictive when we can post them. They have to be arranged, there's certain parameters, and we have to scour our former Facebook postings to get those off there. So they even tighten up even more what we can release and can't release. So it's very difficult to manage, especially when they get arrested, but they don't necessarily get arraigned for another 30 days, we have to wait for that, and then somebody else is out there to see it. As far as protecting your home, so we talk a lot about what's going on in San Andreas, and it's not unlike what's happening to the whole state. The whole state is suffering from homelessness and lack of ability to enforce law. I can tell you that while we're talking about the problems that are happening in San Andreas, we're by far the lowest per capita for crimes in California. So while there is an update from, several years ago, 25 years ago, 45 years ago, overall, we're holding our own very well amongst what's going on with the BS that's happening in the rest of the state. So that's partnership with people calling in. And I know we talked earlier about you can't leave your keys in the car anymore. I don't say that because we're giving up. I'm just letting you know that's not where we want to be. That's our goal is to get there. But, like I said before, I don't blame you, we're not there. And we're a long way from this. We need to take universal precautions to keep ourselves safe. So you're gonna watch locking doors and keeping them open.
Cory, you want to answer the other statistics on homelessness?
Oh, thank you. So we do have a database that tracks on a regional level where our homeless individuals are, especially those that are accessing services. And so we're able to evaluate where individuals do come from. One of the services is to reconnect them with their location of origin. And I know that we have one more piece of data.
And just so that you're tracking using PET data across California in the last 3 years, unprecedented funding for homeless, 17% increase in the state, 54% decrease in Calaveras. So, and that's because we put in programs, we're doing long-term solutions, not emergency. And that's a huge difference in the way we strategize how we address problems that we find present in.
And I'm taking note that the post office is a really good space for us to access for finding volunteers to help with the pit count, the point of time count, because you'll know where individuals reside and who's receiving unsheltered address or mail.
On the same, I don't want anybody here to think that if there's somebody that's down on their luck because they lost their job during COVID, or they lost their job for whatever reason, that we as a group are against that individual trying to get help they need to reformulate their life and get back on their feet. We are not against anybody that's trying to get clean from substances or alcohol, trying to get back on their feet. And we will pray for them to get back on their feet. What we're talking about are the drug addicts and criminals that are walking around, okay? Homeless, there's a lot of people out there that just don't have a house and they are in dire need of one. And we need to figure out a way to build more housing here. Okay, that's true for sure. But we're talking about, there should be a different classification. I mean, they're criminals, okay? And that's what we're talking about. And they're fueled by their desire for substances, and they're causing crime. So we get the homeless data, we understand that the homeless data is something, it doesn't really relate to what we're dealing with here. There is some of that, but mostly what we're dealing with is the criminal element. And we all know why that's happening. We've been talking about that. We appreciate all the information.
You can be homeless without being a criminal.
Yes.
True. That's absolutely true.
I got one question
That's
for
what
you.
you said.
Okay.
For that, you don't. Sure.
So when you talk about the homeless people that aren't the problem, it's the homeless people that crap by the back door of the museum and leave their needles laying around and all their garbage. I've gone into places where they have been and there's packages of brand new food that's rotten. So obviously they steal it somewhere. And I grew up here. I can waller in cow shit and horse dung all day long, but I just draw the line at human feces. And I've had to do it a few times. And I'm sick and tired of it. Twice, I've had to run them off of my property. Excuse me, you don't hear this? At gunpoint. Twice. And I'm sick and tired of being a victim all the time.
What he said.
Yeah.
And a lot of questions get asked about, why do people come up to Calaveras County? Well, I can tell you why. It's a lot easier to access your assistance people than it is down in Stockton. They got lines of people waiting down there to get in to see somebody for help. They come up here for the public health, they come up here for mental health, they come up here for whatever. because it's easier for them to access. They don't have the population to contend with it. I don't know how you can fix that. I don't know how anybody can fix that, because they have a right to come up here until they get what they need, I guess. But that's been a factor in Calaveras County for a very long time. My wife worked in the CCS program. People would come up from the valley because they couldn't get the services on a timely basis for their kids. What's the answer?
Stop feeding the bears.
No, feed them.
Set it down for a long time. So it's-
Take their hands up for about 5 minutes.
Back. Yeah.
What is drawing the tragedies to our county? Yeah, San Andreas. That man just answered my question correctly. Any of you can answer. You. No problem.
For ease of access to housing services, if we do not have these close to anything in the valley, we often have to refer for services we cannot and do not offer. So I can tell you, we intake on every single call that we get very few people from out of the area. And those that are, we always work with the area that they're from, or where they're receiving their medical, to relocate them to services in their county board. They moved to.
Okay, so I just want to give you a word of caution about people taking the law into their own hands. If you're a property owner, you're going to lose it. You can't do that. So we have to get a little bit smarter, figure out different ways of tackling this situation. It scares me when I see, I hear vigilantism type stuff, and I know people are frustrated because I'm frustrated. I live in an intersection of all that has happened, Fulton and California Street. So, and I have no court right back. So I know all about this, and my neighbors too. You talked about the this guy over here, talked about equitable distribution housing, which brought Foothill Court to mind. That scares me, because you can take people out of the hotel, put them up on Foothill Court times 10, and we're gonna have a times 20 effect. So that bothers me a lot. It's not gonna solve everything, because we have no solution for the problems that we're having. All it does is place the problem somewhere else, and then different people may feel it differently, but it's still here. So I'd like to also know, you said you have studies in the program for low-income housing. And I'm all for helping people out if they are having problems with, if they lose their job or something like that. I'm all for that. But you can't make a career out of it. And I think that's what a lot of people do, and then we all suffer from that. I feel like the target. I feel like a victim. I've been burglarized, my house has been burglarized. And we are, my neighbors, I'm sure if they're listening to me, we're afraid to leave our homes for even a day to go visit family somewhere else. Because I'm afraid somebody's gonna come through and break into our house and take some of the stuff that we worked hard for our whole lives. I don't think that's fair. And the state, with the laws that they've been creating, have rendered our sheriff pretty much not useless, but less effective. Because and I guarantee you, these guys are just as frustrated as we are.
These people are, our sheriff's department is just, I guarantee you. So, what do we do? Now, my neighbors, and I'm not gonna mention their names, we had an instance, we had a home on our street that was, vacant. And, homeless, whatever you wanna call them, homeless vagrants, drug addicts, they all seem to find those places. And, pretty soon, neighbors around them are afraid to go out of their homes and or stay in them because they're going to be troubled.
Yeah.
So my neighbor, who was pretty smart, wrote a letter to the property owner and said, hey, straighten this crap out or we're gonna sue you. And that seemed to get some stuff moving. And so the sheriff, but because it's not their problem, they can't. So there's restrictions on what they can do, and I know I keep hearing about the sue, but that's just what it is. So we have to, as a community, we have to get a little bit smarter and try to figure this out, because California is not gonna help with it. And you know, sheriff's hands are tied, they can only do so many things, and we do have a problem. I am frustrated, I feel like you, I feel like also a target. And I'm getting a little bit older now, so I'm a little bit less willing to go tackle some. 5 years ago, it would have been a different story, you know, and next year's gonna probably be worse. So it's not fair to the folks that work their butts off all their life to get what they have for it all to be taken away.
Behind you, you can hold your hand up for twice.
No. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, kind of echo what everybody's been hearing and listening to. It's frustrating being a resident of San Andreas because we are the county seat. We're home to the jail, the hospital, mental and behavioral health resources, health and human services. And it brings a lot of transient, a lot of criminals, a lot of sick people to our town. And we know that all these people need services, that the homeless need houses, the drug addicted need counseling, all of these things. I think for the residents of San Andreas, we just want to have our voice heard to all of the agencies, our county agencies, our county representatives, everybody that's here tonight, that anything that we can do as a county to make sure that San Andreas doesn't have to bear all the burden of this population and the at-risk populations would be great. So whether we can get, like people have said, some type of system, a transit voucher system, so that people can get free bus rides home when they get discharged from the hospital, whether we can get people who are getting released from jail back to wherever they came from, Copperopolis, Valley Springs, however they got here, figuring out a better system to get people back to wherever they came from when they arrive in San Andreas and get the services that we offer here. I feel like I hear a lot of people asking for that in this room and feeling that people come to San Andreas, whether it's in an ambulance or in the back of a patrol car or however they get here, and they're stuck here and they're wandering our streets and they're causing a lot of income, and it's gotten to a little bit of a crisis level. I think everybody within this room is here because we feel like you can just sense every day in our town that things are not the way that they used to be. We have a huge rise in crime and transient population for people that are not from this area that got here somehow. I think we're asking everybody that has the power to help us figure out a way to get people back where they came from. So that after they receive their services, that doesn't mean that they get to live in Turner Park now forever. That doesn't mean that they get to stay at Sierra Inn for the next year. That doesn't mean that they get to wander our streets, because now we're feeling pretty full of that population. And I know that San Andreas will always have a little bit of that burden to bear, because the jail is here, the courthouse is here, I get it. We all know, we lived here, it's always been that way. it particularly feels extra bad now. For some reason, since COVID, the last couple of years, it's gotten worse. And we just want to figure out a way that it doesn't keep getting worse. I think that there's something we can do to share the love with the rest of the county of this population and not have all these under San Andreas. I would say that in terms of health and human services, what I hear from people is that if people are getting vouchers, we just want to make sure that the county's money is being spent at a place that's held accountable for surveillance and making sure that they are enforcing regulations so that crime is not happening on their property. I'm super excited this year in having owners. I am super excited to have the community help you enforce their surveillance of your property and help you clean that hotel up. There's a tremendous amount of frustration with feeling like our county monies are being spent at a facility that was not monitored, that was not maintained, and that was basically a breeding ground for crime and criminal activity. That is the frustration that you're hearing and feeling from this group. This is the perfect turning point to change that. An immediate thing that I would love to see is making a policy at the Sierra Inn Motel that dead, junked cars, trailers full to the hilt with trash, garbage, and junk metal are not allowed on your property. So if somebody wants to stay there, you can rent a room from you, but that doesn't mean that they can bring all their junky cars and be rented on their broke down lobbies in the parking lot because it's an eyesore. And when the children are walking by, it looks threatening. It looks like homeless people are living there because there's 6, 7 broken down cars in the parking lot. I would love you guys to tell the residents of your inn they have to get those cars out of there, or you tow them out yourself. Get those out would be like an immediate thing you can do to make the property look much more appealing to the rest of the community. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. It was a tremendous turnout. I think it should be the first of many. And I would say that San Andreas will be safer just by knowing that all of the eyes in this room are watching. And if you see something, you say something. And you just keep being the squeaky wheel and not get the oil. It'll just make everybody in the room have to listen to us and have to figure out how to make this better. So thank you for coming.
Keep waiting.
I just want to know if anybody's given any consideration for the left-hand turn lane down by the transfer station. All you have to do is look at the road and you know that there's a definite problem there. There's black marks everywhere. I've seen a little horrific accident there. When I go to the transfer station, if nobody's coming downhill that way, I turn into the opposite lane because I've had people bearing down on me. And it seems like we really need it. Could anybody address this? I can try to address it best I can. That's the highway, it's highway 49. And we have a COG meeting with the Council of Government for Calaveras. And Caltrans shows up, their district director, of course, district director shows up there every meeting, and I can have a conversation with them to address that. There's also an issue in front of us, there's a medical center just as you turn off 49, going up to the left there, just having some issues there with people trying to turn left to get into that. It's on the list, so just to get things. Okay. Yeah.
I think one thing that, even newer people to the community or people who grew up here, we miss our thriving town. We miss a thriving town that we used to have. And so part of that is economic development. And I never hear the Board of Supervisors talking about any economic development in San Andreas. I mean, is there something Are we trying to work with property owners? Are we trying to bring in business? Are we trying to do those things?
You mean, well, I just had a conversation with somebody earlier tonight in the transportation district, it's just get them a will serve letter. And they using,
They got a letter.
they have a letter, for the things they have to do in order to get it, so it is moving along, things take time. So it is still in.
What happened here?
I don't have a crystal ball, I don't know, but I can say Kathleen has been working a lot on that. She does come to the board, and there are grants out there. Again, we're still trying to recover, even if you go up and down the county. San Andreas is not, I mean, there's businesses closing, you go to Arnold, closing, they're for sale. Every other business, so it's not specifically to San Andreas, but we are working on it, trying to recover. So, still, we were, but we were trying to work on it, and there are businesses that have opened the state. We are working on it. I don't hear. Yes, sir.
I have one question.
All right, we got one question.
What the hell is San Andreas? I live 3 miles outside of town. Am I part of San Andreas? My post office is here.
You are part of San Andreas. You are here tonight, and you are part of San Andreas. And I consider you part of San Andreas.
Okay.
All right.
I just want to be clear, because if there are no city limits. We aren't a city.
We're not upset.
So we're not even a town. We're a village, I think.
We're a town. He understands that. One quick question.
About the needle program, is there a needle program in Calaveras County? I'd like to know that. What's the budget for it?
Yeah, you don't have an answer?
Are you referring to a safe injection?
I'm referring to.
What kind of needle program are you speaking of?
Handing out needles for.
They give out needles for somebody to come do, so they can have clean needles, they're not
Yeah.
spreading disease among each other.
Well, that's the question, yeah.
We do not have a program. No. Okay. Okay. One last question, anybody? Yes, sir.
This is going to be a great start. What drug brings the most crime?
Alcohol.
You're on the spot, Greg.
Boil it down to drugs. We have a lot of incidents related to alcohol, people getting drunk, domestic violence, part of that, getting in fights. So alcohol, methamphetamine is a huge problem. And the thefts along with that, everything that goes along with meth, nothing's good with it. But the scariest one to me is fentanyl. That is a scary, scary drug. Not too long ago, we had a correctional officer witness somebody in one of our safety cells in a compromised position. They went in to help. Just it being in the air, they went down. So we had to rush them to the hospital, hit them with Narcan. It's scary. Just the other day, we had somebody smuggled into jail. It is a grain of salt can do that. And it looks like methamphetamine, it could be methamphetamine. We've suspended all in-field drug testing because of fentanyl. We bring it back to the office. We have some more specially trained people test it. But fentanyl scares the hell out of me. Methamphetamine probably is the worst. I don't want to say addictive, but we have a lot of problems with methamphetamine, and alcohol really gets in also.
What do we do to reduce that drug? Is it one drug? How do we reduce that one drug?
We've been working on it for years.
Sure you have.
We've worked, so again, when I started, methamphetamine was a felony, now it's a misdemeanor. So we had a bad problem, and then you're tackling it with putting people in jail, making them go to drug court, things of that nature. Now, it's a ticket.
So it's vote loose out.
What's that?
You said vote loose out.
If I heard you correctly, you said vote lose them out. Some people have said that. But that's part of the problem, but not just methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin are also misdemeanors. It's a ticket.
I guess my point is, since we're looking at all these different drugs, we have to be focused on one, we're not having any real effect on anything. I'm wondering, because you asked about maybe a new idea,
Right.
pick one drug. Where do you think it's pot? Pick pot. Now, that's gonna be impossible, aren't it? But pick the map.
So to pick one drug, so drug users typically do one drug, but then they also do other drugs, so it's not specific.
No, but the drug makes more profit. That's expensive. I gotta go break into your car, some stuff we sell to get my meth. Fentanyl's a dirt cheap, like your county is, I don't know. It's the most dangerous in our county. But it's like, reduce the crime.
So to reduce crime, so yes, we should go after meth. So right now, when I mentioned earlier, there's 4 people in the county at one time, 4 deputies. That's from Twain to West Point, to Mountain Ranch to Mobile. When I started 25 years ago on the street, we had 4 deputies on the street. Today, we have 4 deputies on the street. And we're trying the best we can to bring more deputies in. The more deputies we bring in, the more proactivity we can do, the more we can attack going after specific methods.
We can have a volunteer program. Level. Only, all I'm saying. But I don't know anything about that really, so I don't know what are the different things that allow it to get here.
So the question is, how does meth get here? It's smuggled in through southern border. And it's generally made across the border, it's smuggled in by a huge drug trafficking organization. It makes its way up the corridor to us. So it's not like we can go out to the labs, because our letting labs. We go out to the users and the sellers. And again, that's manpower. And again, we haven't really upped our control staff due to attrition and not being able to attract people and keep them here for the 25 years I've been here.
So it looks like the grandmother's side.
They look like you. They look like you. They look like you. They look like you.
So
They
it
look.
could be anybody in this room.
Could be any.
Absolutely.
Could be. There's a cell. I can tell what the user looks like. And there's, but the sellers it's across the board. Across the board. Yep.
All right, so we're gonna go on to the last part of the agenda. Where do we go from here? What I would like to see done is, we have the holidays coming up, and I heard comments about having more town hall meetings. I'm all for that. So we have some programs that Greg talked about, and he's willing to help out with, neighborhood watch and other things. What if we have, if the holidays are coming, what if we schedule a town hall meeting sometime towards the end of January or mid-February to see where we're at? We can all come together and say, okay, we've done this, we're looking at this, and we work with Greg, the sheriff's office, HHS, we've done some things, here's what we are, what have we done that worked, what have we done that doesn't seem to be working very well, and then we can all talk about it and go from there. Does that sound like something everybody would be interested in doing? And then after that, we have another town hall meeting after we decide that night what we can do different, and go another month or two and see what we're doing there, and see if we can keep it going along till we start getting positive reactions and positive things going. We can invite the Patels here again, and they can tell us what's working there with them, and we can see visually San Andreas residents, what's going on, what's working, what they're doing, and we can move on from there. We can bring Doug back, and he can talk about some of the things that are happening at the hospital that can be positive, and probation, probation. So that's what I would like to see done. So can I see a show of hands who would like to see in January, February, another town hall meeting, see where we're at? Perfect. I'll schedule it, Matt and I will schedule it, and we'll get it done. Matt?
So, yeah, I think, we've touched on a lot of things tonight, and I think it was great that we all expressed our emotions about this huge issue and what's going on in our community, in our town. I really appreciate the panel. You're in a tough spot, and I think you listened to what we have to say, and I appreciate you all being here for sure. Thank you very much. And then I need to tell everyone here that Kate Allen had a huge role in setting this up, and she made everything happen here, and I really appreciate all the work you do. And with that, we are in a tough spot, but together we're gonna make some positive changes here. It's not gonna be easy. We have to take it upon ourselves to call 911. Call 754-CT-500. Press option 1, talk to the dispatcher, tell them what you see. They may not sound happy, but that's just, unfortunately, that's where they're at right now. They're overworked, they don't have enough dispatchers, they're doing 12-hour day, they don't get days off. So they're frustrated, we're frustrated, but we have to engage law enforcement. We have to keep these folks moving along, and finally they'll get tired of getting harassed in San Andreas, my bad. They'll get tired of being talked to in San Andreas, and it will minimize the problem. So everybody has to do it. Call law enforcement. Please call law enforcement. Okay, that's why they're here. With that, thank you for being here. Thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you all for showing up. It was great. Great showing by everybody. Hopefully when we come back in January, we'll have twice as many people. Thank you.